library, and very few people know that Central had its own public library. And we developed that before this one existed. And
Do you want to move a little closer? We close the
yeah,
door.
my voice comes and goes. But one of the things that was transpiring at the time was, a new identity. And then the word came that there was going to be a conference in Denver, called the Chicano Liberation Conference. And the name kept changing in the sense of then, flyers came that it was going to be the Chicano Youth, I couldn't pronounce that word, youth movement conference. And then when we got, so we took a bunch of people from How House, it was in Casaslan, yes. And we packed some bands and then we left. And when we got to them.
I went over there, and that's when I got to get involved with the Mexican Youth Organization, known as Mayo. Later it became the Raza Unida Party. And so with the Raza Unida Party, I was working as a managing one of the Fred Garcia, who was running for railroad commissioner. So we had a bug. We had our little car, and we would go around throughout the state traveling, and that was our campaign, and we had several campaigns, but the biggest one was when we went against the state. The Raza Unida Party went on the ballot, and we had the Ramsey Muniz running as governor, and the campaign was successful. We were able to get a lot of people involved into the Raza Unida Party. We didn't get enough votes, and then we did another campaign, and then finally in the third campaign, Ramsey Muniz was arrested, and was put into Leavenworth, and he barely came out this past year. He's been released now, and but he's still in his wheelchair. He's still active, he's still active, and he goes out to the community and works with people who have been incarcerated. So the thing with the Raza Unida Party was that we also were able to bring in a lot of the people from the colleges, universities, and in these conventions, they would go back to their colleges and start organizing. I'm gonna back up a little bit, también. One of the things that when I was here in Chicago, and at Harrison High School, we ended up with quite a few riots with the police, and it was a whole back and forth things. People getting arrested, and then fires breaking out in the school, and out of all of that, that's when I get in contact with Olas. Olas came in and helped us organize. And one of the things that we were able to do was get more counselors, Mexicanas, and
is that at Harrison?
yeah, that was at Harrison. Yeah, and there was a period. Yeah, it was just chaotic police would come in and throw us out, and we would fight with the police to try to get back into the school, and then fires breaking out, and this went on for quite a while. But finally, it came to a point where we were able to to get more Mexicanos or raza. We had a principal that was Mexicano, and then the counselors also. So that was for us that was a victory. At that point, that's when my family and me decided, or more or less my dad decided that we were going to make the move to San Antonio, Texas. And from there, that's when I went to Texas. And during that time, that's when I got involved with the Boston Party, and also on the campaign. We started a few campaigns where with Ramsey Munoz was running for governor. We would go out, and we also had called the Teatro de los Barrios. The Teatro de los Barrios, we would perform with the community, and then Ramsey Munoz and the other politicians would come out and then do their speeches. So we were able to organize pretty much a lot of campuses, and then from the other communities throughout Texas. We were able to get a school bus, a small school bus, and our teatro was called the Teatro de los Barrios. So we ended up traveling throughout the entire state of Texas doing those campaigns. And then the Teatro Campesino came to Texas, and that's when I made contact with them. Well, actually, let me back up.
In Denver, Colorado, weren't you part of the Teatro workshop?
Campesino had come to Chicago. They did 2 visits to Chicago, and I ended up going with them to Minnesota.
Oh, Minnesota.
So became friends with them, and that's how I started getting involved with the Teatro Campesino. One of the things that they did was, what we did is our Teatro de los Barrios, we went to the third National Chicano Teatro Conference in Los Angeles, and we performed there, and we were all still in high school at that time. We performed there, and after the show performance, the Teatro Campesino came, Luis Valdez and everybody came backstage, and they said, "Hey, we liked what you guys are doing," because we were the youngest group. Everybody was college people, and we were still high school, So they invited us to, if 2 of us would like to go to the summer workshop in San Juan Bautista, where they had their office. And so myself and another friend, Juan Gutierrez, we had to raise our own money, and one of the first people that supported us was Malta, Mexican American Defense Fund. We went over there, Mario Olmedo gave us some cash, and then we went to a convention where there was all priests, and then we told them, "Well, we're going to want to go to California and to work with Teatro Campesino," and so all the priests also gave us a good chunk of money, so we were able to fly ourselves to California, and that's when me and Juan worked with Teatro Campesino. That summer, we ended up, Juan ended up flying back to San Antonio, and I ended up with Teatro Campesino getting a ride back across it. They were doing a Southwest tour. But what happened was, as some of the people got sick, I would step in and do the different parts, because I was familiar with the operas, teatro. So when we got back to San Antonio, I went back with the Raza Unida Party. We did another campaign, and then I decided, well, I want to go back to California, so I ended up driving myself back to California, and the Teatro Campesino, they said, okay, well, you can work with us, but we're not going to pay you. You have to prove yourself. And at that time, people get like $5 a week, back in those days. So finally, I kept working, and then I finally became a member. And they said, okay, you can become a full-fledged member. And I ended up working we started developing the Carpa de los Huachis, and that was the first piece of work that I ended up getting involved with the teatro. And continued for about 19 years traveling throughout the United States. We traveled into Europe, four times into Europe, and into Mexico several times. So that was, and I got to the point where I got another offer from a friend of mine to come back to Texas, and he said, well, how much are they paying you? I said, they pay you, I got paid this much. My boss can top that, and you can always go back to Texas, and you can always go back to California. So I decided to make the move to San Antonio. My parents were happy because I was in San Antonio, and so I began working there with the Teatros, and they did have Lugales for many years, and then I ended up working as I got my master's in education and went into teaching, and so now I retired.
Any questions? Mary Kay?
Yeah.
While they're conferencing, let me just mention something.
Okay.
Let me just mention something. When he mentioned Harrison High School,
Yeah.
I don't know if you were there at the time when the African American students and the Latino students,
Yeah,
they were both, of course, making demands on the administration.
and riots.
And they wanted, of course, a minority principal. So the Board of Education, CPS,
Yeah, I remember.
they were very, very sly in this sense. They said, all right, we'll give them a minority principal.
Yeah.
But it didn't turn out to be an African American nor a Latino. It turned out to be Sam Osaki, the first Japanese American principal in the Chicago school system. Very, very interesting. He passed away a couple of years ago.
The vice principal was the Mexicano.
Yeah, Henry, I can't think of his last name right now, but he was there for
And
a while.
the interesting thing was that at that time, he took me to the office, and he said, wait here, I'll be back. And I was sitting there looking at a poster of Cesar Chavez, and I was like, who's this guy? Very interesting face, And so when he came back, and I asked him, who's this guy? He goes, oh, you don't know Cesar Chavez?
What?
No. And he gave me the whole story, and I was like, wow.
Interesting. Mary, go ahead.
I have a question. The teatros were developed all over the place. Where did the idea and the first manifestation of the teatros begin?
In terms of Chicano Teatro,
Yeah.
it was developed in Delano, California. In Delano, where
Okay.
Cesar Chavez,
It was part of, okay. Mhm.
the base of Cesar Chavez, and what happened was Luis Valdez had already gone to San Jose State.
Yeah.
He went into drama, did theater,
Okay.
and then he was actually born in Delano, and then ended up going to San Jose. And then he was also went to San Francisco and worked for a time with the San Francisco Mine Troupe.
Yeah.
So what happened was when the grape strike broke out, he went back to Delano. But at that time, they had Agustin Lira. Agustin Lira was a musician, and he created a lot of the huelga songs. He was the one that a lot of the music that you hear, in the farm workers movement, that came from Agustin Lira. Okay. And he was a composer. And what happened was then Luis came into the picture and joined the group. And so then Luis put the drama, so then that's when they would perform, we sing, we dance, and we do plays, And that's how that developed.
And thank you.
Any other questions?
What we were talking about this one is that we used to go down into the basement of the auditorium in Denver with the conference, and to try to get the different groups together and all that was one of the most chaotic experiences you want to experience. But eventually, we reached the common ground, because not only did Chicanos from Chicago and east of the Mississippi have to deal with our own, we had to deal with the element that we kind of always had to deal with, in the sense of being in Chicago, is with the Puerto Rican element, the Boricua, and the young lords of there, and Cha-Cha Jimenez, and we were able to do that. When the court said, okay, you guys got to come out with something. Well, we selected representatives. But one of the biggest issues we had to do among our own, and I'm talking about the whole conference, was to get them to accept that we had more Chicanos. That's why I said earlier, I got more Chicanos living in Pilsen than you have in all of New Mexico. But they had that mentality that, oh, no, the Southwest, that's the reputation, that's where, you had to go. And once that issue was kind of resolved, and we selected our people to go, then it came on. But then when we came back to Chicago, we had to meet again, the same group, and we're trying to work it out. And then when we had our Chicano movement going, they then developed the Boricua movement going.
Yeah.
So you had two movements and two kind of catalysts that developed from over there. And then we had a meeting with I was one of the individuals selected to go to the 1972 Democratic Convention where they ousted David. The real Mary David, not the kids. And then before we left, we met again with the Boricua group and the Chicano group. And I remember Hilda Fantani, I don't know, she's been an activist for a long time. Miguel Velasquez, who's an attorney, a good friend of mine, Hector Franco. We went together and we had dinner at his mother's house in Ayala, Florida. It was the first time we see the rice, you burn it, and I guess, that's part of the Puerto Rican, the culture. They call it quemado. And I didn't know what quemado was. I didn't know rice, but rice you burn it, you throw it out. And I said, I told his mother, nice, Senora, ¿qué? he came out, you know, they said, look, you know, it's kind of the crispy side of the rice, because, you know, that I didn't know what it was, but, you know, we ate it. But the point, getting back to the thing, is that we had issues that the Southwest didn't have. We were all Chicanos. We had to come back, and we're part of the group that was Boricua too. And so we used to support each other, and how we got represented. If you remember back in 1972, 73 in the paper, you know, my picture came out, he said, supposedly representing the Hispanic community. Well, there was a conference that was held, and Hilda was the co-sponsor, Frank Miguel, and the Puerto Rican, Chacha Jimenez, you know, and that group, because it was a different group. Chacha Jimenez's group in Chicago was considered the most activist, but the most vocal, you know, and then you were the most, you were another social athletic club, I suppose. But we had that issue where Southwest did it, and we used to come together on certain issues, and we'll support each other on definition. That's why I remember the basement. So you didn't want to be in the basement at that meeting, because everybody was talking about their issue and their representation. How you become part of a different group that the Southwest didn't have that problem. You know? And here we had, you know, not that it was a problem, but it was, you know, an issue that we had to work. And we worked it out. I mean, after a lot of argument, a lot of, you know, I want to be the boss, I want to be the boss, you be the boss, okay, you be represented, you be it, you know. And after you got through with them issues, you know, we looked, and I wrote a paper once that saying, how come there's so much friction here, especially here in Chicago, I grew up between Puerto Rican and Mexico, you know? And I thought a lot about it, you know, and I said, well, maybe because we're so much alike. And that was my conclusion, that we're so much alike. You know, our cultures are a little different, maybe we accept them a little different. We're all the same. You know?
Yeah, as Phil mentions, the dynamic in Chicago is a little different from the dynamic in LA or San Antonio or San Francisco.
And then we had to fight in a sense of acceptance in the Southwest, because, like I told you, you know, the delegation from New Mexico said, no, you know, we should, it should only be representatives from the Southwest. That's what the Mexicans are.
I'm a little confused, Carlos, on
Yeah.
the purpose of this conference in Denver. What was the, I mean, why were you all being gathered? Was it to?
Well, the idea was as the title of the conference stated, you know, the National Chicano Youth Liberation Conference. The word liberation was there too. So the idea was to get as many young people from across the country, including New York. There were Puerto Ricans from New York also attending the conference. The idea was to begin to a network throughout the country of Chicano youth to become politically active, and not only politically active like in the Democratic Party sense, you know, but
To have a voice.
to begin to do some work in the community, a little more radical. Well, back in '69, well, before that, is in Latin America, the idea was that armed struggle seemed a viable alternative back then. So part of that rubbed off in the Chicano movement and the Puerto Rican struggle for independence. So the idea was just get us together. The presentation of the El Plan Espiritual de Aztlán, the spiritual plan of Aztlán, which the introduction was done by Alberto Alurista, a Chicano poet from Mexico City who lived in LA. The justification, in other words, for Latinos, in this case Chicanos, for the Southwest, to see themselves not as foreigners, but to look at Aztlán as being the mythical land of the Aztecs and the other 6 Nahuatl-speaking tribes, groups, that the Southwest had been, was the home of the Aztecs and the other Nahuatl-speaking groups. So that, in a sense, we're not foreigners. Very few are.
And why do you think that? Because they've already grown in here, it just becomes normal, it doesn't awaken their sense of being?
It's
Well-
a combination. You know, I think it's a combination of us assimilating. You know, you could go back 50 years, you know, what did most of us have?
Yeah.
It was a struggle.
Yeah.
Then you reach a point where you become complacent,
Mhm.
you know? And I always look back and say, you know what, I as a parent, it has to start at home.
Mhm.
My kids, you know, this was the struggle. You know, my kids are growing up and say, oh, how come they're doing that thing? Well, you know, I had to sit them down and tell them one, and now they're all, you know. But, and I told you, I said, you gotta transmit that to your kids,
That's right.
you know?
But you guys also opened so many opportunities
Right.
through your struggle that kids coming forward could
Mhm.
benefit from.
Oh, yeah.
That a lot of them don't feel the same fire in the belly to struggle for more.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Or in
Exactly.
positions that they get through education, they do struggle, but in other ways.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's where the complaints comes in, you know, it's like, you know, I'm looking over the other friends and see what the Joneses got, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And there ain't nobody here in this room to tell me that they don't look and say, hey, I wish I had that. One day I'm gonna have that. I'm gonna have that. I don't have a convertible, but I'm gonna have me a Jaguar, you know? And I think that all of us literally go through that. And, you know, we could become complacent and we forget our struggle that we went through because, you know, sometimes, hey, I include myself. I get complacent, I get satisfied, you know. Well, what else do I do? I keep forgetting that the struggle never ends. And it's gotta continue, you know? And I was just telling the alderman, because they asked me how you know, my daughter, I always pushed education, you know. I said my oldest kid went to St. Pius, you know, I wanted him to get the Catholic experience like I had, you know, not because, I couldn't afford it anyway, but I went to St. Francis of Assisi, my grandmother, you know, she got me there. But my kids, I said, you know what, I'm gonna give you the best education I can afford. Because you know what, I've always struggled, you know, open doors, and you gotta continue to open doors. But I don't want the wider society to change the rules. For me, I just want the same opportunity, you know, to achieve what I want to achieve. You know, and I'm very proud to say, you know, my daughter got selected to go study international school in Barcelona, Spain. She got a master's. She's now one of the directors of H&R for Procter & Gamble. And I keep telling her, when I talk, I said, don't forget, we gotta help. And she helps a lot of people get into it because, you know, getting into the corporate world, it's not easy. And I said, you're gonna help other people. I don't care how, you know. And that's always been embedded with me. You know, to help other people hop up, open doors, and then other people hop up, open other doors, you know? And most of my staff that I've had, I always instilled that. You gotta instill that. And sometimes it gets complacent, but it takes conferences like this to wake us up, you know? We've got Carlos, you know, he called me, I didn't, Carlos, and then, oh, they said, hey, we're gonna have that, I'll be there, you know? And But the thing is, it takes conferences to wake us up, because I'm not gonna sit up here and say, yeah, I'm always in the struggle. No, I'm always in the struggle, you know. I got a cane, you know, I don't get around too much, you know, but I get around, but thank God there's phones. Oh, and these smartphones, I hate them. You know, that's why I got the dumbest phone. I got a flip, they call it the military model. But the point is that the struggle doesn't stop because we get old.
Right.
We gotta transmit it, and one of the things, I remember my father saying, you know, I'm going back. What you learn, you gotta pass on. I didn't understand it at the time, but now I do. And you gotta keep pushing, and then where the push starts, it starts at home. Because if you can't change your kids, where are you gonna change? You're gonna go out in the street, you know? Sure, you're gonna go out, and there's a lot of people here that have not lost the struggle. But sometimes we gotta get rejuvenated to continue. And that's what these, you know, conferences at Carlos, you know, I take my hat off to him. My hair's still black, but I'm losing it very quickly. And to put these conferences together, because it helps us continue.
The only thing that I see that right now with the immigration issues, I really don't see like a strong representative. I think like 60s and 70s, I don't see anyone speaking out for the immigrants. I mean, it's just kind of like everybody knows what's going on, but nobody is picking up the torch, you know, like to do anything for these kids.
Yeah, well, I think at some levels, you've got a number of organizations who are always out there advocating for immigrants. But yeah, you're right in terms of a national leader,
Right.
somebody who's out there, you know. It's not as easy to identify as in the past. I mean, back in those years, protest was in the air, you know.
Yeah.
It was in the air. Nowadays,
But when I'm saying that is like when we're talking about during our time, we had such Chavez, we had Flores, we had people that we could look up to and understand the struggle, and it was explained to us. And I'm
Yeah.
saying right now with the immigration issue, there's no one standing
well,
up for them.
in terms of other social forces in society,
Mhm.
I think what's been happening is the takes in different ways. You know, and this push for entrepreneurship
Yeah.
as being, wow, the only way to succeed, or one of the best ways to succeed. That wasn't there back in the 60s and 70s. You never heard about becoming a businessman, an entrepreneur, and those kinds of things. You know? I mean, it breaks down the collective approach to things, and so it's more difficult for young people nowadays to. They're not immersed in a culture of protest as we were. You know, the Vietnam War and other issues. I mean, there are other issues out there, the environment, you know, politics out there that we need to be involved in. We need to be angry at, you know, doing that stuff, because we need a lot of work to be done. Our children and our grandchildren are in a perilous situation if we don't act and quickly and as swiftly as possible. But sometimes it takes a while for people to wake up and smell coffee. You had a question?
Yeah, actually, it's sort of connected to what you were saying. I didn't mention this earlier, but I'm also a teacher educator and faculty at the School of the Art Institute, and so I bring teachers out to schools. I support student teachers, and in one of those process, I became like super involved at Benito Juarez, right? And that's one of the reasons, one of the ways I came to teaching the oral histories that I've been gathering from some of the people here. And just so you know, like those students are out there, they make banners in classes, they march like crazy, they're super politically engaged, they're really super conscious. I just ran into a couple of them at UIC, they're like, you know, former students, and they're brilliant. So one of the things that got me started doing the projects there is I said, hey, did y'all ever hear about how your school got started? And they didn't know. And I was like, but it's like the most interesting thing I've ever heard. You know, I can't believe it. It's all this sort of untold histories of powerful leadership in this community. You know, what happened at Harrison, what happened at Frobel, but also too, like all these people that were involved in all these different networks. And I was going to say, hearing about this, it's so powerful to me because one of the reasons I think we don't hear as much about activists, like you'd imagine it'd reach a crescendo, right? Starting with the Chicano movement, it just get bigger and bigger, but why didn't it? In parts, I think, and y'all are really opening this up for me, is that
I think another unique feature about Chicago that's very different from most other parts of the country is that I've always said that Chicago is probably the most Mexican city in the country. The most Mexican in the more traditional sense. I mean, from its food, if you go outside of Chicago, you go to other places, throughout the Southwest, the food is, Mexican, well, you know, maybe Tex-Mex or, you know, other stuff, but it's not really authentic.
Taco Bell, what you say?
And I've heard it from lots of people.
Oh, I just
Live in
came back
Chicago,
from
go out there and say, wait a minute,
you
this
cannot find
is, these are enchiladas? Yeah, I mean, but there's a more direct connection between Mexico
Yeah.
and Chicago
Yeah.
and what's happening, and especially now with what's happening with AMLO, the new president of Mexico, López Obrador is breaking down all kinds of doors, all kinds of barriers, trying to tackle corruption, which has been endemic in Mexico for years and years and years and years. So we have a new dynamic also that's taking place, not only in Mexico, but you have people in Chicago who are also actively involved in supporting what's happening in Mexico. So it's that really wasn't happening back in the 60s, and it's happening now. So we have different dynamics too that we need to look at, and we have other activists that are also, their inspiration is what's going on in Mexico. I think you have your hand up.
No, just I really just very appreciative for the stories that you're sharing, for the questions also that are being raised. Rudy Acuna has a book that came out in 2017. It's called The Erasure of Mexican Collective Memory. So he goes in and argues and documents how the curriculum of what we teach, what histories are told, what stories are narrated, help determine. It not only transmits culture, it helps determine to other generations the importance, what we have contributed. Now, in the United States, and this has been documented by many scholars, there's this concept that's called subtractive education. Subtractive means they take away everything that is positive about one's culture in order to Americanize you and to make us more complacent and make us loyal American. And Valenzuela writes about it, San Miguel. There's so many scholars that have documented that. Now, I have been through the U.S. public education system, and somehow all of these things that make us feel embarrassed and ashamed of who we are were at work even when I was young, when I was going through the school. So many of us have been through that process. And of course, you know, there's combating that right now. Right now, if you take a look at Illinois, the largest gap between faculty and students are in the community college systems, and it's what they call Latinos or Hispanics, meaning you have about 19-20% of the student bodies in community colleges in Illinois are of Latino background, but only 3 or 4% of the faculty. So you have a major gap. There are things that we should be organizing about. There are things that we could be doing. One of the things that's inspired me to come here, to join you, to listen to others, is to help get these stories out there. You know, I'm inspired by the work of Mary Kay Vaughn, of Dr. Ramirez. One of the things I maybe ask for you to do is to consider, Dr. John Flores documents the people who came from Mexico in the 1920s. They were progressive people who came in and helped organize communities in Chicago. Before then, I thought it was 40s, 50s, 60s, but no. It was as early as at the turn of the century. And then there's a group that comes in after that. And then you guys have opened a lot of doors for many of us. So thank you for that. Thank you for the questions, and thank you for the space. I appreciate that.
I wanted to answer your question. One of the things that I recognize right away is that Louis Gutierrez, who's Puerto Rican, the congressman, he was always looking and fighting for the immigration. Yesterday, Chuy had a fundraiser, and one of the things that I told him, and Chuy go back almost for 40 years, I told him, you need to pick up, okay? You need to pick up the bandana that Louis gave you. And
That's
I'm talking about
interesting.
giving you the opportunity. You're the congressman now because he gave you a hand. Now you're the one you're a Mexican from Mexico, but you are the one now that has to lead the immigration for here in Chicago and all across it. But you got to do it because you're here.
And he's
And
in
he goes, "Look,
Congress.
I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it." He says, I'm getting my feet wet right now. He said, right now, you couldn't believe how crazy Washington DC. I said, let me tell you, I watch the Madden show every night. I understand. But I tell him, Louis, you have now the responsibility,
He does.
That's fine.
and it's given to you, and you gotta pick it up.
Mary Kay?
One of the things, I hope we can do this, I hope I don't die before this happens. I hope that, I'm trying with Leonard Ramirez to document the founding of the Latin American Studies Program and the Lattes Program and the Cultural Center at UIC, because I think that they came out of these movements. But I'm more fascinated now with what happened before, because it's so fascinating, all of the history that you've told. But we're going to get to the part about UIC too, because I think it was one of your great accomplishments. But I have this question. Phil, from listening to you talk, it seems to me it's very clear that you came to all this with a lot of skills. And you had a lot of skill for tolerance, for bringing people together, for integrating different groups. You had a vision, you knew what you wanted, you knew how to organize things. Where did you accumulate your skills?
Natural.
Where?
Natural skills?
Yeah,
No, they can't be just natural.
Natural instinct.
No, can't be that.
Develop skill.
I think they were learning as they were doing.
I think I always look at it, you learn in the process.
Right, they were learning as they were
You learn the
doing,
process
so,
by,
yeah.
OJT
going
on the
through.
job training?
You're not gonna, the first time you might not get it right, but you
Right.
learn from your
Right.
mistakes, and that's the key, and, I think you just gotta keep moving.
Open eyes,
You
open
you
ears.
look at things, and you gotta remember the time,
Yeah.
I tell you, I was a lot like younger, in my early 20s, when I started looking at that. And I keep going back to, because I've always been interested in education, and we started the program that we're proud of, is Project Quetzalcoatl. Project Quetzalcoatl Centro was a recruitment program, okay? And we worked with a lot of universities. I remember one time, if we didn't put 2,000 kids into various colleges with financial support, because as a back of my facility, I couldn't, I tell you what, I drained the GI Bill. I couldn't twist it no more, but, we used
Did you use it?
I abused it. Yeah, I used it. Yeah, I used it. But, there was a funny, you gotta understand the mentality of that. When you put an application into the school, and I'm talking this is school, what do you put to your parents? I put deceased, it says your mother, deceased, your father, deceased. Where did you live? So you give a little bit about your background. All of a sudden, you're somebody in that administration, you're hitting that chord. And they'll call you in and say, where do you live? Well, I'm now what they call independent student. That's the word they use now in the colleges. So I was an independent student back then, I didn't know. You know, I was working full-time and going to school. And he says, you mean you're going, yeah, your parents, how long, one of them, that one was 5, and my father died when I was about 11. So I then learned using that tragedy to move forward. And I go back to a good friend of mine, Mark Crudo, who was teaching at the colleges, and he worked with me to develop the Right to Read program in the center, and Laura Paz, and a lot of other people. And what I did was, he talked me into going, I was in college, and he came in and got me out of the classroom and goes, look, I want you to go take a test. It's called the Upper Scholastic Test. Never heard of it. And he says, yeah. He says, when? No, today, right after you get out. Today? Yeah. So, and he came and got me, or else he probably knew I would have slipped out the back way. So I went and took the test, cold. Well, I studied, kept coming. I had 25 scholarships at different universities in the United States. From University of Oregon in the West Coast to Western Michigan to Goddard College. You know, most of them are colleges, but 4 years. And they're all willing to pay my way.
What did you?
University of New Mexico. And, you know, a lot of these schools, you know, I heard of them, but I just, that's what I took advantage of, you know.
Where did you go?
But, well, I went, after I got my AA from Malcolm, and while I was at Malcolm, Dr. Hurst was the president there. Okay, and Dr. Hurst was, you know, black nationalist, very prejudiced. I went into his office and asked for a meeting and told him that he needed to hire more counselors, more teachers, and he told me, you see that flag up there? That's the black colors. I says, no, I know.
Like, listening, talking, I'm thinking that, all your struggles, it's coming truth, okay? So you have to feel good about it, okay? Perhaps it's not tangible, but I can see, the new generations, so many professionals, so many people coming out of universities. Maybe the struggles are different, in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. It came to my mind, I was talking to a typical American, what we call a gringo, no? Lesbian. And, and they just say, I don't know what my roots are. I don't know what my roots are. I wish I was part of a group like you guys. You guys are Latinos or Mexicans. I see friends are Italians, Italian Americans, or Polish Americans. And my name is, I don't know where my grandparents came from. And so, I start thinking, some people, have a identity, and they feel embarrassed to have an identity. They want to be a gringo. So I hear this guy, that is a typical gringo, but he'd like to have an identity, So I think that some of our struggles today is to keep our identity as a group, together, because so many young people don't know that all these stories that we're here listening, and I think we need more programs or more something to attract, and keep our young people together, reinforce their identities, and because there's a lot of people out there, coming out of universities, have positions, professionals, people in construction, managers, etc., etc. But they don't know the sacrifices the parents. I said with my children, I have two kids came out of university. One communication, was an attorney. I said, look, let me tell you my story, how I came here, all the things I have to go through. So you guys have, came out of university because your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, have to suffer. They have to, you have to go through a lot of struggles. And this is true for so many young people. They don't know. You need to have more programs. Maybe on TV. Let them know what they you guys did so much, and you have to feel good. You have to feel good about it. But,
Thanks.
we need see like this book. Donald Trump he wrote a book about the deal, art of a deal. Art of a deal.
He writes books?
Yeah. No, I mean, what he's saying is not science. What he's saying is that anything is weak. We will destroy, or he will. Really, the book comes down to power. I mean, you have to have something, to negotiate. Okay, so as a group, we need to have a organization. We need to have power. And then I was thinking about education. Maybe we need to support Bernie Sanders because he wants free education. Maybe if he becomes president, maybe if half of his plans come true, I mean, maybe education can be a little bit accessible, to young people. Just one thought, okay?
We need to get our people out to the polls. That's one of the key areas that we're sometimes not getting our work. But before I call on some of you, we're going to be taking up other events and issues later on, and other programs. For example, Smiley mentioned the moratorium, the Chicano moratorium of 1970. Some of the oldest members, they're not here, but they went to the Chicano moratorium event back in 1970. So we're gonna tap them to come and relate to us the story of the Chicano moratorium. Also the 1970 march, the Zapata March, that was organized on 18th Street from Harrison Park all the way to the Tribune Building back in June of 1970 that we helped organize, all us, along with the so-called Mexican leaders at that time, the traditional Mexican leaders at that time, Jose Chapa, Carlos Gomez, Severino Ochoa, there were others. So we're going to also hold a program about that. And then the other issue, what Mary Kay also mentioned, some of the struggles that students went through at their colleges and universities, demands that they made, programs they established, professors that came on board as a result of students' activism and community activism, not just the students. So, I mean, there's a lot of ground to cover, lots of ground to cover, especially with people doing research, documenting, like our friend Reggie. We're hoping to gather many more interviews. Also, Obed Lopez also interviewed. Did you? I think you put that on.
Yes, Obed's.
Was it?
I think a little bit, I think, yeah.
Okay, so there's going to be others. I think you had a question?
I just had a comment, follow up on you were saying when you stepped out. I work for City College in Chicago, and it's interesting hearing about the medics, and that's where I work right now. Looking at the courses that are approved within the system to be taught, there are a lot of these U.S. Latino, Native American, African American, but they're not taught anymore because they say, we have to push the gen eds. There's only a few that you can take, and then with student loans and everything, students can't really explore just for the sake of exploring. They have to stick to the curriculum, get their associate's degree, either transfer or get into the careers. And at Malcolm X right now, one of the courses I used to teach at Daily was U.S. Latino Lit, where I did use the Chicanos of 18th Street book, and the students were floored. They had no idea all of this took place here.
Right.
Even students who came from Benito Juarez and are in city colleges now. So I think those courses are important, and I'm actually trying to get it approved at Malcolm X, where I currently work. But they say we can't even fill the gen ed courses like these that we have here. We can't open up new ones, and it's just more the sciences, the math, nursing. So I don't know if at UAC in the four-year schools there's more opportunity and room for students to take these kind of courses and major and then go on to careers, but the students that are at city colleges don't get that exposure to this.
And the enrollment is down, right, in city colleges?
Not that much because we have the nursing and all this health sciences, but there's not room in those curriculums for
Chicano studies, Chicano studies.
I think somebody brought it up, there was an interesting point that here in Chicago, we formed kind of I would call it the coalition of need. When we need to come together, we'll come together, whether it's the Boricua or the Afro-American. I remember Congressman Rock Metcalf, he started Concerned Citizens for Police Reform. We're going back 30 years. When the police were really, not that they're any better, but they were really bad. They used to come into the neighborhood, beat up the kids, take the kid from here and drop them off in an area you don't want to be, because it was a different area.
Rival territory.
Yeah. And but we came together for a common ground. Congressman Metcalf always selected to be his co-convener on Concerned Citizens for Police Reform. And we came out we had congressional hearing, which was, I think, was good because then it became part of a congressional record. And the same findings we found back then, 30 years ago, are very appropriate now. And I used to say sometimes, things work in circles. What happened, I look and see what happened 20 years ago, it's happening now, and vice versa, just continues, the cycle continues. But we got together with the Afro-Americans at the time, because, we were, as Carlos was saying, sometimes, we hang on to their codes, and they hang on to our codes. And we kind of use each other and sometimes abuse each other. But I think it's one of the issues that we only find here in Chicago. It's what's going ahead. And a lot of times we got, I remember growing up on, I grew up in Mid-Vietnam on Taylor and Newberry, and we were always hassling with Afro-Americans, and then later we needed to come together, and same with the Boricua. Well, back then they weren't called Boricua, they were Puerto Rican. And we try to reach a common ground. And it happens, we come together when we need to come together. I think we should develop something where we stay together. Well, we come together when there's a need. And then we'll come together. And sometimes they use us.
Well, I'd like to thank Phil, Smiley, for providing us with all those experiences, that information, that insight. And all of you for joining us. Gracias por acompañarnos. Make sure it's going around somewhere. I don't know where it is.
Right here.
And we're going to be planning the third program. Unfortunately, Magda could not be here. Hopefully, it's not a health-related issue. She can join us for the next one. But we'll be tackling other issues. And like I said, the question of teatro also, different theater groups in Chicago, Teatro del Barrio, Teatro de la Raza, all the others. There are lots of other theater groups in Chicago that sprang up as a result of the Chicano movement and Teatro Campesino. So yeah, there's been a Chicano movement was an inspiration. The Chicano movement served the springboard, and we're still up here. We're not down here. We're still up there, and we're dealing with the issue of immigration, and we got to move forward. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Thank you.